Hello and welcome to Teenagers Untangled, the audio hug where we use research by experts and our own experience to discuss everything and anything to do with parenting teenagers. I'm Rachel Richards, mother of 2 teens and 2 bonus daughters.
Hi there, I'm Susie Asley, mindfulness coach, mindful therapist, musician and mother of 3 teenagers. 2 of them are twins.
Today we're going to try and help a listener whose son seems completely obsessed with Snapchat. We talked about generally managing screen time in a previous episode. I'll put the link in the podcast notes. But that was a while ago, and we didn't go specifically into any single app. So, Susie, did you know that there are a number of lawsuits being brought in America against social media companies alleging harm being done?
No, I didn't know that.
No. I've just finished a book called Stolen Focus. I didn't find out about it from that, but, and I can't recommend that enough because Johan Hari, who wrote it, unpicks all the ways in which our ability to focus properly is being eroded by modern living, much of it, these apps.
I've got that book. I haven't.
Yeah, it's great. It's really...
I haven't dug into it yet.
I've underlined lots and lots of pages. Anyway, before we begin, let's start with something really positive, and that's an incredibly moving review that we've received, Susie.
Yeah, it's really beautiful. You have changed our world and you will never really know how indebted we are to you. Ooh, I've got goosebumps just reading that. Thank you, thank you, thank you. My wife and I just wish we had discovered your podcasts a year ago. We've both listened, absorbed and changed the way we parent off the back of such amazing insight of how our children see the world. Our home is now a calmer, more interactive and wholesome environment, and it's all down to you. Wow. We have finally realised that we have been the blockage to the communication with our girls and have changed. We now have so much happier girls who feel able to relax in the home environment. I'm not great with words. I don't know. You don't
I think
well.
he's very good with words.
But you've changed our world and you will never really know how indebted we are to you. I've tried to listen to many podcasts in the past, but yours has struck a chord and is so relevant and relatable. Thanks, and we look forward to more insightful help in our lives. Wow, thank you so much.
I'm so moved by that.
Really
Honestly,
beautiful.
that's...
Crikey.
Yeah. Pause for lump in the throat. And actually, I think one of the reasons it's relatable is we struggle too, and we're not experts. Yeah. So I think we're all learning, and I'm learning constantly from doing this. So,
Absolutely.
We're kind of a club rather than,
Absolutely.
Now, on that note, on to the special golden nuggets of what we've learned this week, Susie.
Well, mine's a bit of a repeat, but I think a repeat is good.
I think we have to repeat all the time.
I have to repeat a lot.
We're raising teenagers.
And it's the phrase that just kind of changed the way I do a lot of things. And it is, I get to rather than I have to.
Yes.
And as a single parent, I've used that a lot. And at the moment, there seems to be a lot. My kids are kind of breaking up for the summer. There's loads of stuff going on and loads of lifts and I don't know, just lots and lots of things. And some of them are really lovely and fun and some of them are a bit of a pain in the neck. Yes. But if I go, I get to, then it's immediately reframed in my head and it just works. It's amazing. I get to do this. I get to take you so-and-so because then I can talk to you in the car. I get to do this.
I get to see the M25 car park yet again.
Yeah, that one doesn't work.
But there are cows grazing in fields nearby, so you get to look at the cows as you're sitting on the car park.
I get to listen to podcasts on the way.
You get to listen to exactly that.
I do that, exactly that. I get to chat to you. One of the ways, So it is a massive game changer for me, and I repeat it daily at the moment.
I think it's a brilliant one, and I've been using it too. With me, my kids are broken up from school, and I talk often to them about how being on their phones makes them feel. And what they've achieved in their day, what do you remember from that half an hour you spent on your phone? And I got a fair amount of pushback at the beginning, but even my daughter, who was resistant, has become much more aware of how the apps that she's been using are sucking her time, and they kind of leave her feeling empty. And I think the thing that switched for me, because I used to try and control it and say, you're on your phone too much, and instead, by asking her how she's feeling and how happy she is with the amount of things she'd done that day, and I sort of sat on her side, and she became much more comfortable talking about it. And I was shocked. The day before yesterday, she said, "Mummy, can you please limit my time on my phone to an hour a day?" because I know that's all I need. And I can check in at various times and then I won't lose contact with my friends. And I thought, wow.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And she read a book in 2 days. And we don't often get time to do things like that. So she just sat there. And I just thought, gosh, that's time that she's now claimed for herself. And I'm really impressed that she's started to get that. But it's all to do with her making that choice herself. So we talk about this a lot. We have to find the why in them.
Yeah.
They need to know why they want to do something. Otherwise, it doesn't work.
And then the awareness to do it and the discipline to follow it through.
Yes. So she says she feels more energized and everything.
Amazing.
Yeah. So anyway,
Brilliant.
Right, back to Snapchat, because this is the big thing that we're going to talk about today. There are so many issues we can talk about generally, but let's focus on this. It's a multimedia social networking app that teenagers can use on their smartphones. I remember being horrified when I discovered my bonus daughters were using it way back when. They're now 28 and nearly 26. The disappearing messages seemed particularly worrying to me.
Yes.
And sinister.
I remember when it came out. Yeah.
Yes. And I just thought, God, this is awful. It's evolved since then and morphed. And to be honest, I don't really look at it much. But my daughter just went through it with me. And it just looks like everything else. It looks like TikTok. It looks like Instagram. It's got, they're all copying from each other.
Yeah. They use it to chat, don't they, really? Mainly?
Yeah. That's absolutely the main thing. But Snapchat users can also edit pictures and videos, add filters, share their media publicly. So it's doing all those other things now, as well as being a messaging forum. And if I ask my teens, they say nobody over school age has it. They said that would be weird. And I'm not sure that's the case everywhere else. So in North America, makes up 92 million of Snapchat's daily users. This is the most recent data I got, followed by Europe with 78 million. And it's likely to remain the social app for Generation Z for at least the next few years, if, there are up and coming apps. But between 2014 and 2022, teenagers aged 13 to 17 sharply increased their Snapchat usage from 41 to 59%. And that beat Instagram's 10% growth. So we're talking about the growth. So this is a real growth app.
And it's also one that they seem to be on for a long time.
Yeah. Yes.
Because they're chatting on it.
Yes, that's absolutely right. My daughter says TikTok is more addictive.
Right.
And I think that's because they've done some incredible stuff with algorithms. I've listened to a podcast with the man who set it up, talking about what he'd done. They came at it differently. But with the Snapchat, yes, it's very much about the messaging and relationships. And there's some really positive things about it. Let's start with that. There are positive things in terms of their relationship, their ability to connect.
Yeah, it's fun, isn't it, as well?
Exactly.
They put all these
fun.
silly filters and have a lot of fun, but it's a bit obsessive.
But the legal cases I mentioned to you, platform owners, Meta platforms, so that's Instagram, Facebook, ByteDance, which I didn't even know about, Google and Snap are fighting almost 200 lawsuits filed in the US on behalf of adolescents and young adults, and at least 24 complaints by public school districts blaming the companies for health issues, including anxiety, depression, eating disorders, and sleeplessness. Now, I'm bringing this up because what I want to do is I want to normalize the problem that this poor lady's got. So because Johanna Hari talks about it in Stolen Focus, where he says, the truth is we're living in an environment that makes it very hard to manage this.
Yes.
It's not just, and the companies want us to think it's a personal failing.
Yes.
They want to blame us for our inability to switch off these apps, but it's not the case.
No.
So I want to go into this because I want people to understand what's going on. I mean, you can listen to my other podcast, but this is slightly different. So here's the gist of the argument. I went into one of the cases and the summary. American children are suffering an unprecedented mental health crisis fueled by defendants' addictive and dangerous social media products. They cite the defendants' studied efforts to induce young people to compulsively use their products, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Snapchat, and YouTube, borrowing heavily from the behavioral and neurobiological techniques used by slot machines. So Natasha Devon talked about this in the interview I had with her, where, you're pulling the arm. When you pull down on the screen, it updates.
Yes.
Okay? That's a slot machine thing.
Yeah.
And exploited by the cigarette industry. Defendants deliberately embedded in their products an array of design features aimed at maximizing youth engagement to drive advertising revenue.
Yeah.
Defendants know children are in a developmental stage that leaves them particularly vulnerable to the addictive effects of these features. Defendants target them anyway in pursuit of additional profit. So, Snapchat, in response, says it's been wrongly dragged into the social media addiction suits. They say it's got ephemeral messaging service, which makes it fundamentally different from other platforms. Because they say, look, we're not doing the same things. I beg to differ. They say, unlike these other platforms, Snapchat is primarily used for direct communication between people who already know each other in real life. Now, I read this to my daughter and she actually gasped and said, oh, it's the most addictive, one of the most addictive. She said she thinks TikTok's slightly more addictive, but she said it's really hard to be off Snapchat if you're on it.
Absolutely. I've seen it. And with my kids, they, especially the younger two, they are on it all the time.
Yeah. Now, Spiegelug, which is the magazine of the psychology department of the University of Amsterdam, has a great piece on this. And they say social media platforms such as Snapchat employ techniques known as dark patterns to influence user behavior.
Ooh, that sounds sinister.
Now, what's a dark pattern? It pushes the user into doing something that they would not normally do by playing on psychological vulnerabilities, but you're not conscious of it, right? So like buying something you would not normally buy in the absence of that dark pattern, or spending more time than intended on a specific platform. Oh yes, my daughter's mentioned that. And then there's forced action dark pattern, so it makes people do certain actions that they just wouldn't do in order to maintain some functionality. So like social pyramid, where users have to recruit other friends to get benefits. Privacy zuckering, which is where users are forced to share more information than they would intend to otherwise. And then gamification, which is a clear one that Snapchat uses, where what they do is it's the repetitive actions to achieve a certain feature of the platform that's important. So the constant snapping.
Yeah.
So what you have to do is you have to take a photo of yourself and send it to your friend. And these are your streaks, your snap streaks. So these are arguably a form of gamification.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and it's really interesting how they work, because your snap streak with a friend appears next to their name. Or an image, and it's usually got a colourful emoji, and it assigns a score to the relationship. So people feel stressed about their score.
Yeah, and if
with
they break
that friend, and if they break it, they feel bad because they're the person who broke it. And I didn't even know this, but my daughter showed me that you can actually pay to get back a streak. So let's say you've had a X day streak with somebody, and the price goes up depending how long the streak was.
I've heard of that. I thought it was a fraud. But...
Yes. And my daughter every now and then does streaks, and then she comes off, and then it offers her to pay some money to get it back, and she's like, I don't care. So now they look like they're fun at first glance, but that's quite sinister, because again, that's trying to get money out of them to keep their social kudos. And it encourages them to open up their app every day because they're scared that they're going to lose the streaks.
Yeah.
I mean, Duolingo does this.
Yeah, I mean, mine use it as their primary form of communication with their mates. That's how they text each other. That's how we find one of my kids. Like if he's off at friends' houses, I get his twin to go, right, can you find him on Snap Maps?
Yes. Now that we'll come on to that, because that's a really
private
interesting
settings.
one. Yes, that's an interesting. No, it's an interesting one. So now, just staying on this score that comes from the snapping and the streaks, it also assigns a score depending on how much you use the app, and it makes you look much more socially connected. So my daughters have said, "Oh, such and such is really socially connected. Look at her Snap score." So I asked one of my daughters, what's your Snap score? She said 65,239. So I said, show me another one, somebody who's got a high Snap score. And she said 812,252.
What does that even mean?
I don't know what that means, but the comparison is 65,000 versus 812,000. Yeah. So this person is clearly on Snap a lot more than my daughter, who is on Snap. Right. So, so you can tell how much your kid's on Snap by their Snap score.
I am so going to look at their Snap score when I get home.
No, I haven't even, it just not really occurred to me to look that deeply into it. And maybe that's bad parenting. I don't know.
know.
Yes, and adolescents in this report noted that this was an essential feature which motivated them to continue using the app.
Yeah.
And some participants said it's stressful and they feel obligated. It increases levels of anxiety. And the reason it's a bit like gambling is the logic is that once you've got so many streaks with someone, you don't want to stop because then you lose all those streaks.
Yeah.
Which is a gambling technique. Once you've actually invested so much money, then you kind of feel like going because you've lost so much or you've put so much into it. And this is classic.
They feel it as quite a loss if they break a long one, or they used to. I don't think mine doing it anymore. Well, I'm not sure.
Well, it depends whether you're hooked into that.
Yeah.
So Duolingo, if I don't keep my streaks up, they ask me if I want to pay money and I say no. And then, and then they start nagging me and sending me messages going, are you sure?
Yeah.
But individual user scores are visible to users' friends. So this is the problem because there's a visible. So Snap is saying we're not doing the same thing as Instagram and Facebook because we're not showing the likes and we don't have a regular feed of what they've done over the years. But they're still doing something like this because you can see other people's scores and there's still that.
That's really key, isn't it?
Yeah, there's that pressure. And so it's social comparison that's incited by that. And many studies have shown that social comparison can have a negative impact on well-being.
Especially for teenagers, because they're more prone to it. They're more vulnerable to it.
It feels like life and death, doesn't it? And Tech for Good, which is an organisation that's trying to figure this stuff out, proposed, Snapchat, what they could do was they could remove the feature of streaks completely. I mean, that would help.
Yes. Probably
Snapchat
don't want to
declined.
do that. Yeah, funny that. So
streaks could be less visually prominent. They could hide you'd have to actually go into. Didn't do that one either. Birthdays. If it's your birthday, you need lots of people mentioning you on Snapchat because it shows that you're special to lots of people. And also you need to put something up, a message up, otherwise you don't seem connected to them. So it's lots of pressure.
So if you don't have that, then you feel like you're a total loser with no mates.
Yeah. And it's really interesting because, again, Johan Hari in this book says, look, these apps could do these really powerful things that are positive. For example, Facebook, they could put a button, it would take one day of programming, a button on the front page saying, I'd love to meet up with my friends who's around. Yeah. And then what would happen is all these people could meet up and they could have a lovely time interacting socially. They won't do that because they want to keep you on the app because then they can show those figures to advertisers and say, look at how many eyeballs are on my app.
Oh, they could do so much. All of the tech could do so much and they choose not to.
They choose not to.
It's a business. It's horrible. It's heartbreaking.
Yes. So Snap Maps that you mentioned. Do you remember our one about parties?
Yes.
Yeah. Do you remember what's the problem with Snap Maps?
Yeah, totally.
Yes. So Snap Maps, you can trace people. I was contacted by a mother who said to me, I have found out that my daughter is being tracked by another mother on her Snap Maps.
Okay.
Does this seem strange to you? And I said, yeah, that's wrong. That's wrong. And she said, what can I do? And I said, well, you message her and say, would you please remove my daughter from your Snap? And by the way, why are you, why are you tracking her? And it may be that she just, I don't know. I don't know why.
It's probably
that was
totally
happening.
innocent and she just wants to have
totally
more
innocent.
availability for her own daughter, but it's weird.
It's so, there's that. And the whole thing, if you haven't listened to the party episode, is that if people, so you can see on Snap Maps if people are getting together. So if you've got a child who's feeling a bit left out, they can see on Snap Maps that all their mates are together at a party or they've all met up in London and your child hasn't been invited.
It's like the new Facebook.
It's the new Facebook. And then, but it's worse than that because it's immediate. You can see exactly where they are. And often they'll make sure their location's on so they can show that they're all at a party. But also, that location, if people turn up at your house for a party or a gathering, you need to make sure they've switched off their maps. Because otherwise other people can see that and then turn up at your party unwanted. So there were all sorts of issues with that.
You have to be really careful of that one. Yeah. It's handy sometimes though when we don't know anything.
It's very handy. Yes. Well, you see, I use Life 360 for that and you can create groups but then I would created a group with some friends when we were at a festival and then I realised I didn't know how to come out of the group and I was still tracking someone's 11-year-old daughter, and I've got to get rid of this. Why am I getting notifications about her?
Yeah.
So that's, like you said, sometimes these things happen and then you don't know how to reverse out of it because you're not aware of the technology. So they have their problems. Yeah. They are doing the same thing. The suggestions of things to watch, the reels, I never look at those things, but they can suck you in immediately.
Yeah.
Disappearing photos. This is one of the big ones.
Yeah.
The photos, messages. Right. 2 problems. Drugs, sexting. So let's stick with the drugs for a second. There's been a 150% rise in unintended drug overdose deaths amongst 15 to 19-year-old Americans between 2018 and 2021.
Wow.
Jamie Puerta, whose son died in 2020, has joined a group of 26 families who are suing Snapchat in a case. And the lawsuit alleges that numerous special features on Snapchat, such as disappearing messages and My Eyes Only, which is a hidden data vault that requires a PIN number to access, have made it the preferred choice for drug dealers.
God.
I mean, I did not know this at all. And it
makes total
pretty
sense.
Dark stuff.
Horrible.
And this, Jamie Puerta claims that almost all bereaved parents that he speaks to tell him that their child bought the pill off a drug dealer on Snapchat. Now, Snapchat alleges the plaintiffs have mischaracterized how the platform works.
Oh.
So they are defending their position.
They kind of have to, and they also don't.
Yes.
It's horrible, isn't it? Why?
It's horrible.
As soon as you're aware that something sinister is going on with the product you have, surely you change it. Really?
But that's what all of these companies are being told. There's a chap called Tristan who was the person who was in Social Dilemma. I don't know if you've watched that video documentary about the way that things are being manipulated, and he blew the whistle and said, I don't want to be a part of the world that's been created by this. And people all went, yeah, I completely agree. And then no one did anything. Nothing happened. It's very scary.
Really terrifying.
So there's that. And then there's the photos, the sexual photos. This is the preferred app for sexting.
Yes.
Sending sexual pictures,
nudes,
disappear. Whatever, they disappear.
And if you take a screenshot, then it
notifies
you. Yeah,
it notifies
that you've done that.
But I mentioned this in an episode many moons ago where I was with my daughter. A boy had sent her a photo. It wasn't sexual. It was just him and his torso. Very nice torso. But she laughed and showed it to me. And I snapped it immediately with my phone. And she said, "Oh, Mummy, you can't do that." And I said, "But I just did." And she said, "But you can't." And I said, "I'm not going to keep the photo, but I want you to understand
that's how it works.
That's how it works. So it doesn't even need to be the person who you sent the photo to who betrayed you. No. It can be anyone." And I checked because, I'm all over this porn stuff that I want to understand is going on. I just looked in Pornhub, sexting photos, entire areas for this stuff. So people, if your kids are sending these photos, you don't know whether it's because Pornhub is like the YouTube of the porn industry. My goodness. And there are ways you can bring this down, pull it down. Look at that. I did have a sexting episode, but it's very, very worrying and can be very emotionally and mentally damaging if photos get out.
Very much so.
And I mention this also because anyone who sees our Instagram accounts has seen that my daughter's school sent us an email about how people are targeting young people.
Yes.
To try and get photos out. And they start by complimenting them, then they get a photo, and then they bribe them. They blackmail them. And it's online criminal exploitation. But it can lead to suicide. These kids feel like their life is being destroyed.
It's terrible.
And it's not just girls. So understand, if you have a boy, this conversation needs to be also inclusive because people target boys as well. So people can screenshot the image. They can use third-party services like screen recorders to actually record any photos, videos that are sent. It just shows that nothing's really private or safe online. And I've said it many times to my kids, if you get to the point where you're having a relationship and you want to send a photo or a video or something, make sure that you are not identifiable in it. Do not have your face. Do not have your room. Anything that can be identified so that you can then say, that's not me, if anything comes out. That's the only way you can make them safe in this regard. Tell them not to do it. But so these are the problems with Snapchat. Don't panic if you're a parent, your child's got Snapchat. But I think we need to understand so that we can then talk to our kids and say, here are the issues. And here's what I need you to be aware of and to look out for.
Yeah.
Yeah. So signs you're addicted to Snapchat. So this lady, she's got this son who she says, I think he's just on it all the time and I don't know how to deal with it. So if it's part of your morning routine to check Snapchat stories, like literally the first thing you're doing, and some people, they haven't actually got out of bed, but they've snapped a selfie.
Yeah, I think probably lots of teenagers do that.
Yeah. Your Snapchat story is more than 120 seconds long. I don't understand this, but this is from PanSpy, which is one of the many ways that you can use as a parent to monitor what your child's doing. You spent so long binging on everyone's snaps that by the end of the day, you're convinced you've been out and about when you haven't even left your bed.
Yeah.
So you can feel like you're socializing. You can see what everybody's doing and have seen not a single soul.
Yeah.
You have to Snapchat everywhere you go. You put everything you're doing on Snapchat, or you feel like you know all the celebrities you follow.
Yeah.
Right.
But like you say, until you ask them, well, how is that making you feel? They're probably fine with it.
They're probably not aware.
No,
because
it's
we have to
automatic,
understand.
It's accumulative as well. Like they start and they do a little bit and then a little bit more, and then they get desensitized.
Yes.
So it's tricky.
And I think what's happened with COVID is that the world has shifted. We have a lot of teenagers who've grown up in their rooms online. The amount of online use rocketed during COVID, obviously, because we were all just going nuts. Some people had a great time, but for most of us, it wasn't great. And they were schooling at home. Yeah. And so what's normal for them is probably not what we would have considered normal. And when I did a talk recently, I said to all the adults, would you have rather have been a teenager when you were a teenager or a teenager now? And every single one said, when I was a teenager. And when I said why, they said because of this utter freedom where I could meet my friends and go and do all these amazing things and there was no social media. So we're aware of it, aren't we? It's just we're stuck in this awful situation where you kind of have to encompass it, but find ways to control it. Strategies for breaking an addiction to Snapchat. Parental control apps. I'm not a fan because I think that it's so much better to engage with your teen and show them.
They'll fight against that.
They'll fight against it.
Some kids, it might, maybe the younger teens it might work for, but older teens, they'll just, mine would just hack their way through.
Well, yes, exactly. And then
they're way better at tech than I am.
You're safe, and they're like, exactly same here. Same here.
I got the controls on. Just going to go around it.
And then if you find out, what do you do? I mean, I think it's really important to be checking in really regularly, like even every day if necessary, and talking to them about, because they need to find ways to control their use. I saw one mum who said, oh, I just let my kids be on it all summer. I don't really, and when they go back to school, they'll come off it. I don't agree with that either. I think it's really important that they have. It's
personal management as well, isn't it? I mean, I'm sitting here thinking, well, my kids are on it too much. They're going to be going to their dads, and when they get back, we'll have a work out something. One of them particularly, anyway. And it's also depends on who they are, what else they're doing. There's lots of variables in it. But I personally think banning things and putting lots of rules in place around it can be helpful, but it can also cause real problems of power and control and arguments and disconnect eventually because they don't feel trusted. So I think your approach of how does this make you feel? What are you getting out of it? And sowing those seeds of making them more thoughtful around it is the way out.
Yeah, absolutely. And then turning off notifications because all of these apps like to notify you to tell you that you haven't been on.
It's a buzz.
Yes. And then going offline if they can.
Yeah.
Spending time. So again, with my daughter, when she said, can we have 1 hour a day when I'm on?
Yeah, I think it's brilliant.
I was amazed. Yeah. And she
could all learn from that.
But you know what else is because I've told her how it works. And I've said to her, what happens is there's a snap of cortisol about 15 minutes after you're offline, if you're used to being online too much. And the other night she said, I'm feeling that, because she'd left her phone upstairs because I said, right, just that's the end of that. And she noticed it because she knew that that's what that was. So I think the more we talk to them about the techniques that are being used and how they're being manipulated, the better for them being able to kind of step away from it. Getting them to read before bed. Reading's it's an important thing, and it's a dying area. It doesn't matter what they're reading. Really doesn't matter.
Scrolling,
Doesn't matter. I read before bed, and I find it's a really good way of decompressing, stretching, anything, physically removing the phone as well, keeping it downstairs, everyone charging it at the same time. Things like that can really help them disengage.
Yeah, it's important to get it out of their rooms if you can. My daughter actually has it. I know that she turns it off, but I think I'm now thinking it would be better to have it out of her room. I know she's not looking at it. Whereas one of my other kids, it has to be out of his room or he finds it too tempting.
And I think that I would be too tempted.
And it's not worth not worth the discussion of it.
It's not worth it.
It's out, you don't, and then it's gone. It's a relief. I can't.
Yes, exactly. So I've been a long term, right, it's got to be out of the room, downstairs, everything on charge, and then you can all just go,
It's bedtime.
And it's space, and they can feel safe, and they're not having to think about stuff. And you can warn them ahead of time. So if they know that every night it happens at this time, then they can do their quick, I've got to snap everybody or whatever beforehand. But then you can also say, so, that whole snap flurry, was that, why, is that important? Why is that so important?
Yes, really important.
How does that,
okay.
Yes. And
just do it before this time.
And they're manipulating you. Anyway, they want us online either to sell us stuff or to sell our eyeballs to advertisers. It's all, and get our data. So one other thing that Johan Hari mentioned before we finish this, he said that each one of these apps starts off with a kind of generic voodoo doll of you. And every single time you click on something or you stay on something, it fills in the gaps about who are you. So it makes you, okay, she's a girl. Okay, what kind of girl is she? What does she like? And they get more and more information so they can push more and more detailed, specific things to you that will turbocharge your interest. That's how it works.
Lovely.
That's how it works.
Lovely. Thank you very much. Anyway. Snapchat.
Having a lovely holiday.
Now terrified everybody.
Right. So, well, the best thing to do is to get your teens socialising, doing other things if you can.
Yeah.
Going cold turkey can be painful. Remember that cortisol spike, but let them know that that's what's happening. Give them a sense of empowerment. So that's it for this season.
Yes.
Teenagers Untangled needs to take a little break.
Having a summer holiday.
Having a summer holiday, yay. And actually paying attention to my teenagers instead of talking to everybody else.
Exactly.
Yeah, we do have a long back catalogue of other episodes if you want to go over any of those. I'll still be on Instagram sort of checking in to if there are any messages or on my website. So if you want to email, Susie's around. She hasn't dropped off the planet. She's just not doing the podcast over the holiday. So she'll be around if you...
for some of it.
For some of it. She'll message
I'm
back.
also not going to be around for all of it, which is deliberate and will be lovely.
Same, exactly. If you've enjoyed this episode, then why not help other parents? Tell your friends, tell the school, subscribe to the podcast, leave a review.
Yes, please.
Yeah. You can also sign up to receive all the latest at our website where there's a blog, reviews, links to every episode, www.teenagersuntangled.com. Easy ways to contact us, and Susie's contact is... I
have a website which is www.amindful-life.co.uk. Oh, I had to think about that.
I know, I think we're all wearing thin now, aren't we?
Can I go on holiday yet?
Time for a holiday. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much.
Have a great summer.
Bye for now.
Bye for now.